Well, hey everybody, this is JT here at Rubber City Motoring, back in the Trailblazer. Trying to do a couple things here before the winter driving season begins. One of the bigger ones here is, however I wired that radio in was incorrect. So every time I start the car and as it's like loading, and you throw it in reverse, it basically tries to find a backup camera that's not there and then it locks up. So I'm going to take a look at that. But the big thing this video is about gauges. Let me show you over on the workbench what I'm doing. I pulled the gauges out and got a little upgrade here for you, which is actually very easy to do. As always, it seems like there's about 20 different projects going on, but that's okay. This is an easy one. So I've already started to take this thing apart. Stock gauges, stock bezel. Now what you can do on these is, let me see if I can get over the top here without being too much of a glare. I mean, it looks fine. It's not a bad gauge setup. I always wondered why they made just the tack silver, because this kind of came out in the era where Ford was doing white face gauges. White face gauges were kind of a big deal, but they only went with the one. And when I look at this car at the auto show, I was always so confused. Like, why didn't they just do them all? But honestly, the white face gauge fad kind of disappeared. And it sort of disappeared with the SVT cars, in my opinion. But either way, that's not what we're doing here. So this bezel, we'll call it, it's held in just by some little tabs like that, and it lifts right out, and it's got the clear part on it, and then the gauge surrounds, if you want to call them that. So we'll set that aside here very carefully, and then here's what we're left with. Obviously the gauges are here. They're just plastic. I mean, it's nothing crazy. You can see I got little bits of lint and stuff which you could take away. This thing does have one or two burned out LEDs, like down here's a little dim, but I'm not sending these away at the moment just because it's, I don't know, I probably should, but maybe that's a summer project if I want to tear this all apart again. But what we have here is, this is from the GMC Envoy, if I'm not mistaken. And if you compare the two, let me see if I can get this over here without breaking anything. So you have just sort of a black surround with this one, and then over here you've got sort of like a more of a trimmed in look with the silver, and it looks a lot better. Now both of mine are kind of dirty. So what you do here, this is, I've never done this, but I've seen it done after the fact. So this goes on here like so, very carefully, one-handed. And then you actually have to snap it into place and all that, I believe. And I'm going to check and see on fitment that, but you can see it looks a little bit different. Yeah, and I think it hits on something or rather. I'm going to check on the sides and all that. Now, the one thing that does happen is you have little bits of white kind of showing. Like, if you can make that out, like right over there's a little bit of white. And even over here's a little bit. It's very shiny though, there. So that, from what I've heard, you just black it out with a Sharpie. So I'm going to get this fitted on here. What's very funny though is this took me 3 times to get one like this. You know, you'd find somebody pull one off of an Envoy, ship it, and then if you don't package this correctly, it's just, I mean, it's plastic. It could break very easily, and all of them were shattered. I got one that was in like 1,000,000 pieces. One had a big crack in it, and it was, you know, basically this whole process ruined 2 of these, and this is the 3rd and final one. So, but yeah, gonna get this fitted on here, and I'll show you the final product inside. But it's more of an appearance mod that, you know, if you can get to a junkyard and get the dash apart and get that out of there, I bet you, you know, they'd charge you under 20 bucks for that thing, if not less. So nice little upgrade here. But let me get this going, and I'll show you the final product. And what's funny, non-visible area, I don't know why it says that, but it does. But yeah, it's pretty much this white. I don't know why they put the white on it, honestly. But yeah, gonna check this out. I assume this one has more of an overhang to hide all that stuff. Definitely does in the middle there. You can see that bit there is a lot bigger than that one up there. You do lose your Chevy bow tie if that sort of thing matters to you, but yeah, let's see how this goes here. All right, so now I know what I have to do here. I recall reading this and it's all gone from my brain. So these little I don't know what you call these little guide posts. They don't all line up. That's the problem. So looking at this, we'll say the passenger side, which is over here, this one has to come off, and this one has to come off. And I think from there, this one right here matches this one over here. But they're meant to fit in these little holes, and right there and right there. Yeah, the Envoy must have a different, obviously it has a different gauge setup, but it's must have different places to line it up on. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm sure it holds it in place a little bit, but you know, like these tabs hold it in place, and then when you screw it down, it's gonna you know, bolt all together anyway, sandwich all together. So these little tabs, or these little, I don't know, guides, whatever you want to call them, these little posts have to come off here. So these actually come off easier than I expected. I have these little cutters, but anything will work. It seems like you just put these on here, and then that's it. And you could file it down, but I don't really think it's going to contact. And I cut that one off over there already, right up there. Pretty simple. And you got some leftover plastic bits, like that's all you're cutting off right there. All right, and there we go. So a little bit of Sharpie work. It's not ideal. This one shows a little bit over here, and that one shows a little bit over there. But honestly, I think from your seat, you're not going to notice it too much. Although I do notice a little dirt inside this thing. I might want to clean it out a little bit. I cleaned the front of it, so it's pretty shiny now. But there's our old, and there's our new. I'll show you a installed look here in a second. And there it is. That is installed, almost. I mean, we got to get the rest of this all on and stuff, but strictly appearance mod. Does nothing for performance, changes nothing but looks, but looks a lot better, that's for sure. Just kind of tightens it all up on there. And what's cool is all the needles are, you know, they're close, but they're not overly close where they're going to hit anything or, you know, bump anything from moving. I think that's pretty slick though. And it shouldn't affect the lighting. Everything kind of works just like normal. Gives you a little bit of more of a cleaner look though. I've really never looked at the gauges in an Envoy, but maybe I'll try to find a picture and drop it in here so you can see the difference. But and a lot of people do change the needles sometimes too to a blue or something different, but I'm sticking with this. This is more than enough for me. Overall, I'd say this would be a, I don't know. I mean, you got to pull the dash apart. That's the thing. And if you can't do that, or you're not really sure on that, it's not exactly the easiest dash to come off. It's the typical, you know, big, massive piece. This is all one piece across here. And there's two connectors there. There's your wiper connector if you have that. Two power outlets down here. I've even got the interceptor gauge there. And you have to mess with the shifter and all this stuff. So it's not exactly easy, but at the same time, it's not overly hard. I mean, I'd say like a 5 out of 10. Maybe 4 out of 10. I don't know. It's not that hard, but it's just like, just for looks, you got to decide if you really want to do it. And the tricky part too, like I said, was finding one of these bezels in good shape and also not having it break. Because the last thing you want to do, I mean, this is just plastic. You don't want to put an ugly bezel. Like the silver part's fine. I mean, that's kind of protected inside, but if the glass is all scratched and stuff, I mean, unless you're really good at plastic polishing and all that, you don't want to put something in that's super ugly either after all this work. So that's what I got on the Envoy bezel conversion. And as I've been through this Trailblazer and you see things to do, it's cool because it does have some different things you can upgrade that are easy, like we did the cabin air filter upgrade. That video's taken off quite a bit. And yeah, just some various things. So if you'd like to see more on the Trailblazer, let me know. It's, what is it, 85,000 miles right now. Still hanging in there, doing good, and running pretty solid. So more to come on this guy, though. So thanks for watching. See you next time with what's next. But this was the Envoy gauge bezel. All right, have a good one. We'll see you.